Let yesterday serve as a stark reminder that things can change very quickly in the NFL. It seems the Cardinals have escaped any sort of severity, but it's still something that should be talked about. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner _. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on so you get notified when my big dumb face comes on the screen. Computer, wherever you ingest Locked On Cardinals. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Tyler Drake from Arizona Sports is going to join me in the final two segments to give all the ins and outs of camp, talk Marvin Harrison Jr., talk my thoughts from yesterday about Monty Ossenfort and his statement about veteran contract extensions and what he thinks the realistic expectations are for the 2024 season for the Arizona Cardinals. Center Hjalte Froholdt got rolled up on yesterday. That's the story. That was the story out of camp. It was on a play that resulted in Marvin Harrison Jr. with a ridiculous catch in the end zone from, and it's something where it's like, oh my God, that's going to be great for the Cardinals. Oh my God. And you see Hjalte Froholdt get rolled up on. It's like, okay, it's a stark reminder that everything can change. And I've asked a couple people who were there, a couple of my sources, as I guess you could say, people overuse that term a lot. Didn't seem to be any sort of cast or walking boot after practice. Was walked off on his own power, but it acts as a reminder that everything can change. And it solidifies the fact for the Cardinals in 2024, the depth is going to be so important, especially on the offensive line. I discussed this last week. The offensive line needs to stay healthy, and if any starters do go out, you need to get 70% plus production from bench guys, whether it be Kelvin Beachum as a swing tackle or Jon Gaines, fourth-round pick out of UCLA last year who got injured before the season started, Evan Brown, whoever it's going to be, Elijah Wilkerson, if he can take that leap that we didn't see him take last year. Is Isaiah Adams going to start at left guard? Rookie out of Illinois. There's a lot of unknowns around the offensive line, and it's something that while the offensive line is the strongest it's been ever in Kyler Murray's career at least, if you can't protect Kyler Murray, none of this is going to work. And Hjalte Froholdt's been great since coming over last season. He's been great. He's been 85% of what Rodney Hudson was in the 1 year that he actually cared about playing football for the Cardinals. And that is exactly what you want. And if he were to get injured, the interior of the offensive line is immediately weakened. I do know that Evan Brown stepped in and looked fine. Jon Gaines, they're very high on during camp, and he's pretty much given a full go since getting injured during training camp last year. And for those that don't remember, Jon Gaines was looked at as a steal in the fourth round out of UCLA. He could play both center and left guard. And it's something that the Cardinals desperately need depth in, especially left guard. It's going to be very interesting to see who starts at left guard this year. We've talked about it. Is going to be Isaiah Adams just jumping in, stepping in there? Is Jon Gaines going to be given a shot first? Are they going to run with Elijah Wilkerson first? Maybe because Paris Johnson Jr. is playing left tackle and not DJ Humphries, it'll make Elijah Wilkerson's job a little bit easier. Unsure. But center position and left guard, those are the two key positions that Hjalte Froholdt needs to expound upon from last year, and left guard just needs to get better. Left guard position just wasn't good last year. And it's something that needs to change, or the Cardinals are going to struggle this year. Just what it is. There are many question marks, as I've discussed a lot on this, on this show since the end of last season. But the question marks are different. It's not what the hell are they doing? Question mark. It's which players will step up. How long will it take the younger guys to step up and step in and be ready to rock? The biggest one for the offensive line is, can the left guard position become less of a liability this year? It doesn't have to go from, a C- D+ grade to an A+. Doesn't have to. But it's got to get better. And with Hjalte Froholdt getting rolled up on yesterday, it just, as I mentioned, it's a reminder that depth on the offensive line is so important. And the Arizona Cardinals, at least on paper, are in a situation in 2024 to be able to withstand injuries, something they haven't been before. When Rodney Hudson went out, it's like, well, there goes the interior of the offensive line for the year. Last year, Elijah Wilkerson was left out on an island and was unable to compete at an NFL level, and the Cardinals struggled mightily on the left side of the offensive line, especially in pass protection. So while Froholdt has been great, he's kind of like a Kelvin Beachum signing, where it's like, this kind of works. Having your starting center go out, missing time, is something that cannot stop the train. So we'll see if it's going to be Evan Brown or if Jon Gaines can get back to form where he was looked at as potentially being the starting center or starting left guard last season before getting injured. Again, anything can change at the blink of an eye at the NFL level. So while things are great, that's why I'm kind of telling people, temper your expectations here for a bit. It's great. Enjoy it. Be a fan. Love it. Marvin Harrison Jr., the offense, the defense, the young players on defense, Darius Robinson starting to show out. Just woosah. Anything can change at any time, especially when we're 6 weeks away from week 1. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Tyler Drake, Arizona Sports, is going to join me next. He's been at camp. He's making the drive. Long hours, long days. So I don't have to, which is awesome. I'll ask him everything about Marvin Harrison Jr., about Kyler Murray, about this offense, about Jonathan Gannon, about Monty Ossenfort's quote that I discussed yesterday, where it's a case-by-case basis regarding veteran contract extensions, and if he thinks that Monty Ossenfort let something slip, like I do. Tyler Drake next, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Game Time is a registered, authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which means getting tickets is faster and easier than ever. Prices on the Game Time app go down as you get closer to the game, which is pretty badass. So if you're 15 minutes from first pitch, you can be looking at half price. I mean, it changes mightily the closer you get to the first pitch. Now, if you haven't sat in left field at Chase Field, if you haven't sat in right field, if you haven't sat in center, and you want to maybe catch a couple dingers, like the Diamondbacks put up 7-17 burger yesterday, the Game Time app lets you see the vantage point from your seat before you buy the tickets. So if you've never sat in a specific section before, it takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, which is what Game Time does. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Tyler Drake, Arizona Sports, joining me here, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit the subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. It's only going to get better from here. We've made it through. We've done our homework of 2023, 2022, 2018, half of 2019, some of 2020, second half of 2021. So we deserve this. Media members deserve this. Tyler Drake of Arizona Sports deserves this. I mean, the fans do also. You guys do also. Everydayers do also. But Tyler, thanks for joining me. Talk to me about camp, dude. So really quick, with the Hjalte Froholdt injury yesterday, give me like a minute. What you saw after the incredible catch by Marvin Harrison Jr. when reality set in that the starting center had gone down on the field.
Yeah, right. Like best play of training camp so far. Obviously, there was a flag on the play, but we're calling it a touchdown on this side. Yeah. So that's what it is. But yeah, obviously, the highs of seeing that and kind of seeing that on display, and then you turn around and you see Froholdt on the ground, you're like, oh, geez, like just can't have anything nice. But Basically, it didn't look like it was anything too bad. I know a couple people saw him leaving the stadium. He looked fine, so all good there. He came up, he was walking. He obviously was slow to get up. Trainers wanted to make sure he was all right, but I don't expect any missed time. Maybe, if anything, maybe some limited action coming back tomorrow. But with the off day and everything, but again, they are really harping on health and nutrition. So possibly limited. I could see that happening if they really want to be cautious, but also it didn't look like an injury that should have him on the shelf, which is a good thing. But when he went out, that meant Evan Brown slid over to starting center. And first of all, it was Isaiah Adams getting that left guard first team rep, but then Jon Gaines did come in and take over. So that's going to be really interesting. I think a big part of that was because Jonathan Gannon was saying Jon Gaines was still a little bit limited, but he should be full go here soon. Like, I would expect tomorrow maybe he'd be full go. So that's going to be something to watch, because I really do think Gaines has an inside track to maybe being either, maybe not starting, but being that first guy in if something were to happen like we saw yesterday. And from all indications, from everything that I've seen, from I was able to talk to him a little bit in the locker room, the dude is really impressing a lot of people in just across the board, coaching staff, teammates, and he's just really got a good perspective about him. I was able to get a little one-on-one with him, and he spoke about how he used the perspective of his dad battling through kidney cancer to really get through a season-ending knee injury and the recovery back, and just how that really helped him along on top of the nutrition and health team. And obviously his teammates, Kelvin Beachum and then former Cardinal DJ Humphries, were huge in his corner too. So really cool stuff coming out of that side of things. And obviously it sucks to see Froholdt go down like that, but it does give you a look and see really quick of like, all right, who's that first guy they plugged in? Because, a lot of people I could see maybe Elijah Wilkinson just because they've known him for a little bit, but seeing Isaiah Adams jump in there and then right after that, Jon Gaines, I think that kind of shows you a little bit of the pecking order that they're seeing right now. Obviously 6 days in a camp, anything could change, but a good kind of starting point to see the depth behind it. And I heard you right before I jumped on, the Rodney Hudson thing. It wasn't very like, oh no, what are they going to do now? I mean, it looked pretty seamless. Move Evan Brown over, move one of these two guys over at left guard and keep rolling. Like, that's a testament to what Monty Osborne's building right now, because they didn't have that luxury last year. If somebody went down, it's like, oh man, how are we going to patch this together? But now it really seems like they've got multiple pieces on multiple spots along the line that they could just plug and play and keep rolling.
Yeah, and that's one thing. It's interesting you word it that way, because I've discussed a lot this offseason about there being a lot of question marks going into the season, but the right ones. Not the what the hell is Steve Keim doing question marks. How is this going to play out? More of like a who's going to step up? How long is it going to take? Is Max Melton going to be ready week 1 to be that CB1? Is Sean Murphy-Bunting going to emerge and look like the 2020 Sean Murphy-Bunting? Is the offensive line going to be much better than last year? Because they don't need to be that much better than they were on the right side. So the interesting part, and we'll pivot here to the fun stuff, but the fun stuff's easy with Marvin Harrison Jr. and the offense and everything. Darius Robinson running amok up the interior yesterday. The offensive line is in the best position it's been in a decade, in my opinion, because of the options. They've got depth. This isn't like Rodney Hudson then, there's a man named Sean Harlow on the team who's going to play center now.
Yeah.
Or Mason Cole is going to be playing now. It's like they've got more options than, Josh Jones with a 3rd-round pick. Probably got to throw him in at this point. Oh, wait, a 98-year-old Kelvin Beachum has been outperforming him? Maybe not. Maybe let's trade him to Houston. So Jon Gaines, Evan Brown is not a household name yet, but he may be if injuries do happen. For those who don't remember about Jon Gaines, 4th-round pick last year out of UCLA, was slated to be potentially the starting center last year and starting left guard. Not obviously simultaneously, but he was in the running for both and then had the knee injury. When you look at depth chart here, and then we'll pivot, say something does happen, or say, let's do this, say for starting left guard week 1. Does anybody have that position pseudo locked up at this point, or is it Jon Gaines, Isaiah Adams, Evan Brown, whoever performs best in camp and in the preseason is going to get it?
I think in my opinion, it's Evan Brown. I think Evan Brown's the guy. He really just, from everything that I've heard from Paris Johnson, from other guys, Hjalte Froholdt, all these guys, like he's kind of that missing link, I think, for this left guard spot. And that's not taking anything away from Jon Gaines or Isaiah Adams, but he really, man, he just seems like he's gelling really well, especially with Paris. And Paris is that left tackle. So that relationship really needs to be forming big time, and you can already tell it is. I mean, they have competitions in the weight room on the daily, and it sounds like they're having a lot of fun, but they're really bonding with one another. And so I still think it's Evan Brown's job to lose, basically, or it's his job that he has to give up because he's got to move over to center if something happens with Froholdt. But I really do think it's Evan Brown. And then I would go from there. Honestly, I think it's going to be Jon Gaines as his immediate backup with Isaiah Adams, kind of filling in here and there. But again, Jon Gaines could also go over to the other side too and play right guard behind Will. So there's a lot of different ways they can use Jon Gaines. And that's one of the things they really like about him is just his cerebral ability to play three positions along the interior. That's a big reason why they drafted him. And so I really do think he's going to be kind of, I know we talk about swing tackles, and that's going to be Beachum, in my opinion, but you've got Jon Gaines who's going to play all three spots along the interior. That's huge. And that just shows you the versatility that this Cardinals team just loves and loves and loves and loves. And they never want to stop having the versatility like that. And you can see how that has helped out because just that little injury that we saw from Froholdt, like I said, it looked seamless for them to just pop in and throw a couple guys in there and keep rolling. So I do still think it's Evan Brown's job to lose, but there is candidates behind him that I think if things were to happen and people were to get shifted around, they could come in and still do the job well.
Tyler Drake at TDrake4Sports on Twitter. Cardinals Corner podcast, Arizona Sports does a great job over there. So, I mean, I don't really care about, here's one thing about camp for me is it's fun. It's exciting. You get to see the product starting to become formed with clay and everything. You get the good sound bites from players and everything. You guys do a fantastic job. It's a lot of hard work, and I all of that. And we're still almost 2 months away from the season.
Yes.
So not almost 6 weeks. So what I'm looking at is the abstract stuff. Does it feel different in the building? And not just because Marvin Harrison Jr. is there and Max Melton's there and, James Conner's back and he's got a running mate back there and the offensive line is good. Like, all the storylines are popcorny, all of them. Does it feel different when they're on the field?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's been the biggest thing that I think I saw. I mean, even last year you could kind of sense something was changing. This year it's very evident. It's to the point where, you have Kyler coming and talking with us the other day, and he spoke about just how he can be fully himself in this offense and fully himself with this team. And him and JG are on the same wavelength. And, Drew Petzing is a robot, but he loves what he brings. And Izzy is just the guy that he loves to chat with about, ball. And he's got all these guys around him. And it goes well beyond that. But I think that's a good starting point because I think everyone has said throughout Kyler's career, when's he going to take that next step? When is he going to be that leader? When's he going to do this? When's he going to do that? And a huge part of that, I think, is just getting guys that relate with him and guys who want to go to work and show what they do instead of say what they do. And I think he's taking, the necessary steps as a leader. And then you look at the whole team as a whole. I mean, they're all playing for one another. And I think that's the biggest thing. There's accountability out just wazoo. I mean, there is so many things that were missing from this old regime that this new regime was like, no, we were hitting on that first. I mean, even going into the nutrition stuff, they're bringing in more athletic trainers, more performance trainers to really make sure they're looking at how the schedule should really be. And they're talking to a magnitude of people to understand, all right, we did it this way last year. How can we tweak it to better the players? And that's always been the thing. We're the coach, with Jonathan Gannon and the coaching staff, they're the coaches. At the end of the day, it's going to be on them if they win or lose. But for them, it's more on getting the players to their maximum. And I know that sounds really easy, but I feel like seeing how they really want to coach players. They don't want to just say, hey, go do that. They want to be able to teach them in a way that if they're not on this team next year, they're going to take what they learned from here and use it to their best of their abilities with another team. So just that aspect, the team camaraderie is really there. I think another good example would be Budda Baker not having his holdout or not having any of these contract, situations really impact what this team's doing. I mean, there's no distractions, and that's the other thing. That's the biggest thing. There's no distractions. There's no off the field issues. No holdouts, nothing like that. I mean, it's so refreshing from somebody who had to cover more off the field things than on the field things. I would say that last year of the Cliff regime, then yeah, I mean, it's just that's the biggest thing I can tell, man. Is it just everyone's about their business. Everyone's about the person next to them. And it's just really refreshing to see as like somebody who, played team sports growing up. That's what you want to see. You see it at the pro level. Everybody's got to feed their families. Everybody's got to make that money. Mm-hmm. But they're all realizing, let's do it together, and then we'll all get paid. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Fruit trays and cell phone breaks do not outlast actually coaching your players.
That's wild. Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. I mean, that was literally like a highlight of training camp for everybody. Oh my gosh, they've got a fruit cart out there.
Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, Tyler Drake, Arizona Sports, joining me, talking all things camp. Yesterday, I posed a question. I don't have an answer for it. Nobody's going to have an answer for it for quite some time. Could this wide receiver core be the best the Cardinals have had in 20 years? I'm going to explain what I mean, and we're going to talk about realistic expectations for 2024. Namely, is the defense going to hold the offense back to the point where the Cardinals can't win more than 6 games? That's not a rhetorical question. Curious about what Tyler has to say. I have some thoughts too. We'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. I love sports. I don't know if you know that when I'm screaming like a wild banshee. I love them so much, and I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we've got fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to this summer. But FanDuel lets me keep going with sports whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up any bet I want at any time. Anytime I'm in the mood. So this summer, FanDuel's doing something pretty sweet. They're hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everybody every day, all summer long. I talk a lot about how I wish baseball was my favorite sport because it's March Madness for 6 months. 106. You got to be kidding me. FanDuel's got you covered for all of it. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right. Tyler Drake, Arizona Sports, gracious enough to join me on his day off today. Are you taking a chopper out there to Westgate?
I mean, no. So here's one thing. Here's one thing. Shout out to Jonathan Gannon for setting up practice to where I don't have to fight traffic all the way in the morning and then fight it all the way back. Like I just have to really do it kind of once because I try to hang out at State Farm Stadium as much as I can and get as much as I done before I've got to take an hour drive back here. So. About an hour a day. It's fun, man. It's fun though. It's like obviously like a lot of people give me the, oh man, how do you do that? It's like I get to go cover a football team. Like that's my job. Like it's cool. Like yeah, and are there days where it's like, man, I've got to drive an hour to State Farm Stadium, but then again, I get to kind of almost recap kind of what I saw yesterday, what I want to get into the day of. So it gives me some extra time to kind of evaluate training camp from a different eye. And, listen to Wolf and Luke or whoever's on the radio station too, to get a little better perspective of what they're seeing out there. So yeah, it's all good though. Yeah. But yeah, definitely a drive. I think I have the record for farthest drive in every day.
Well, I don't know if that's a trophy anybody wants, but you wear it well. So I kind of want to frame it this way. So I brought up the conversation yesterday. Could the Arizona Cardinals, this wide receiver core, be the best, and Trey McBride, so let's say pass catchers, be the best the Arizona Cardinals have had in 20 years? And I automatically cut the head off the snake with the comments where I'm not saying that Marvin Harrison Jr. is Larry Fitzgerald. I'm not saying anybody's Larry Fitzgerald during his prime at all. I'm not saying that anybody's Anquan Bolton. I'm not saying anybody's Steve Preston, okay? But it kind of formed, as I was arguing with myself, formed into the conversation of, would you rather have this wide receiver core as is right now or the 2015 wide receiver core? With Larry Fitzgerald moving into the slot, really getting that second lease on NFL life. But then you had John Brown, J.J. Nelson, guys who weren't that level. John Brown was fine. He had a couple good years, obviously. Very no risk it, no biscuity. A lot of Chris Johnson, a lot of David Johnson when Chris Johnson went out. Carson Palmer was great. Would you rather have Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., Zay Jones, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, or that 2015 team? Because if it's this one, we're closer to it potentially being the best wide receiver core the Cardinals have had in 20 years, closer than we think.
Yeah, I mean, man, we got to see what they do. But on paper, even before this question was posed to me. I thought they had one of the better offenses for Kyler Murray since he's come
for sure
to town. I think you can rival the year where Connor had like 16 touchdowns. I think that'd probably be the one offense that might have been probably a little bit better than what this one is coming into things. But I think they have the potential to really, I mean, I don't see a ceiling with this team right now, like with the receiving core, because you've got Marvin, who looks everything is advertised. Obviously, we got to see what happens in the games, but the dude's smooth with it. He can do just about everything. I mean, the catch he had yesterday, that was, I didn't think he caught it. And then the fact that I'm looking at the camera again, I'm like, oh, dang, he actually, he came down with that thing. So that alone, I mean, he really has it. And the connection that him and Kyler have is just unreal. I've said this a lot, but he really does remind me of a mix of Fitzgerald with the humbleness, work ethic, and then you mix in that with the superstar ability of like a DeAndre Hopkins. And we've got to see both of them out here. So that is just the side where it's like, this dude could really set a lot of, I don't want to say records, but he could really make a name for himself because, again, this team's going to want to run the ball, but he's going to be open a lot down the field, and Kyler's going to look his way a lot. Then you go with Zay Jones, and you got Michael Wilson. I mean, that's a huge battle for wide receiver too, and I don't know how they keep them both off the field. Like, that's going to be tough. And then you've got Greg Dortch, who should not be off the field because he's moving that slot role, and he's getting some run out of the backfield. So, I mean, it's very much top to bottom, and we're not even talking about Trey McBride. And then you throw in Elijah Higgins and Tip Ryman, who I think is going to surprise a couple people too. This is the best receiving core Kyler's had for sure. I think top to bottom, the talent that's there. Again, caveat: we've got to see what it is on the field. Yeah. But when we're really looking at it, it's just where do you defend? Because if you put in two guys on Marvin, that's going to open up so much other things for other guys. And I mean, Greg Dortch, I'm expecting a lot out of Greg Dortch just because, I mean, the dude had a huge day yesterday, caught everything, it felt like. So, it's like pick your poison, and it's legitimately pick your poison. And we're not even getting to the running back room yet. I mean, James Conner still has ability as a pass catcher. You've got a huge battle there at RB2, really, between Michael Carter, Trey Benson, and Amari DeMercado, which Amari DeMercado is getting more first-team reps than any of them. So, a lot of intrigue and a lot of different playmakers for Kyler to work with. So to say that this is one of the best receiving cores, I think is an easy one. I think you could rival potentially offense for Kyler, depending on what we see this regular season.
Yeah, and the craziest thing about Trey McBride is, I mean, with Tip Ryman, and he's not going to have to chip as much. He's not going to have to be on the line as much. He could be a true bona fide like Jimmy Graham, where he won't have to block, which is wildly scary for, like, it's interesting. And this is one thing we could do an hour on, and I don't have time for it today, but like, I'll do it. I'll get you back on before the season starts. Like, I wonder how much control Kyler's going to have at the line. I mean, it's going to be like, hey, Kyler, here are 2 plays for if the box is stacked. Here are 2 plays if it's light. You run the ball if it's light. You throw the ball if it's stacked. You go score points. Like, I don't understand how opposing defenses are going to stop unless the offensive line doesn't hold up. We'll talk about that. You know, it's with Marvin Harrison Jr., like, you said something interesting about it. The DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray experiment was an arranged marriage. It was 2 guys who were already set in the race. This is like grassroots from the ground up, putting reps in. Everybody was talking about how Kyler put everybody up. And when they did when they did that team building exercise on and off the field, like, this is day one. This is, what do they call it? You have a kid, like the not core memories, but when you're imprinting or you're doing something. Yeah.
That core memory would be a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing that's starting here, which is going to be fascinating. Now I'm already going long, which I can't. So 2 questions and just go. One, I think you tweeted out this defense may be better than people think. Okay. How much better than last year do you think that defense will be? Pivoting towards, what are your realistic win-loss expectations for the Cardinals 6 weeks out? I know this is going to change. I know things are going to change, but kind of give me your thoughts from the defense directly pivoting to the win-loss record.
Well, the big thing with the defense, talent has been, I mean, through the roof from last year. I think across the board, obviously pass rusher, they didn't really do much there, but I think they like the guys they've got. Ojulari, I think, has taken it upon himself to really take that next step entering his second year. He looks like just a different dude out there. Dennis Gardeck's playing with his hair on fire still. But the big thing I'm noticing is the defensive line. And that was a huge problem for this team last year. But the talent that they have across the board, they've got, much like the offensive line, they've got depth now. That's the big thing. Darius is going to make his way into that first team. He's not leaving the first team once he gets there. He had some first team reps yesterday. He's easily moving all across the formation. He's loving it. I mean, the dude studies 10 clips a night. He was studying 10 clips a night before he got to training camp, still getting his master's degree. Just all this stuff about him is everything you've read about him is exactly what he's doing. And he looks so comfortable out there as a rookie. And he's one of the biggest dudes out there. You mix him in with Dante Stills. You got Bilal Nichols. You got Justin Jones. Roy Lopez is getting a lot of first team reps too at the nose. So it's just the depth there alone is huge. And the talent there is noticeably different. And then you move back into the secondary. Sean Murphy-Bunting, I think, is going to be a steady, force out there. Obviously, he doesn't scream CB1 like some of the other guys around the league, but I think he's there and can do the job of a CB1. You throw in a guy like a Max Melton, or you throw in a guy like a Starling Thomas, who has really stood out to me this camp. You roll with that. And then you've got Garrett Wiliams, who has solidified himself in that nickel. I honestly thought he could go play outside if they needed him to, but I think they're liking what they're seeing out of Melton, out of Thomas, out of other guys. So I think Wiliams has that spot locked down in the nickel, and it's great because he's probably one of their best corners, I would say, on the team. And to be able to roll around in the nickel and do kind of the dirty work of it is a huge, I think, accomplishment for him. Safety, we all know what's going on there. That's locked down. No problems there. That's one of the most solidified positions. Inside linebacker is another one that I think is really solidified with Kaiser White. I mean, just having him in the middle. I mean, he's a dog, man. And he's the one who said yesterday that this defense is miles ahead, not only because of the talent. You didn't really mention the talent even, just because they're in the second season with this regime. And the guys they've brought in are like-minded. They're all the same guy. I mean, it gets almost repetitive when we're talking to these guys because everybody says the same stuff. And it's not like they're getting coached up or anything. That's just what they think. That's how they roll. So the defense should not be holding the offense back. Do I think the offense has the upper hand? Yes, obviously. But I think the defense is head and shoulders than they were last year at this time. I mean, Kaiser said himself, but even just looking at the field, looking at the players on the field, there is a different feeling for sure. There's a lot more violence. There's a lot more, I want to say, accountability. There's a lot more depth. I mean, all the things that everybody wanted to see last year, you're seeing right now. And again, we've got to see it on the field, but huge steps already being taken. What was the last one? Realistic
expectations for 2024.
I've said they're going to double the win total, and I think that is still a very good mark. I could see it going to 9-10, just depending on what this offense brings to the table and how far this defense can close the gap from last year. But definitely think this, if they can't double the win total, I would say it's a down year, and obviously that's going to be 8-9 and that's still under 500, but you do that in year two, I think that even puts more confidence, more comfortability with everybody on the team to really attack it in year three. And I'm not saying wild card's not out of the question this year. I very much think that a couple things shake their way, they stay healthy, Michael Wilson especially, they can really do that. But realistic right now, I'm going to say double the win total with a chance at 9 or 10.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. And we'll get out of here on this. They play a lot of rookie quarterbacks. So They're already crowning Caleb Williams. Cool. You can do that. He's still a rookie. Jaden Daniels, Drake Mayer, whoever it's going to be with New England. After the bye week, they've got that little soft spot for a couple weeks. I don't know if you call Seattle twice in 3 weeks or twice in 4 weeks. A true soft spot, but it is murderers. Sorry?
It's a weird spot.
Yeah, it's a weird spot. It always is with Seattle. But the first 8 weeks, I think, are going to tell the tale for the trajectory for the season, because that's the murderer's row. With Green Bay, and the first 3 weeks they play Buffalo and the Rams and Detroit. But all you want, and I think that you'd agree with this, that all you want is for them to be in the hunt graphic in week 14. That's it.
Yeah.
If they're there, that's a win of a season.
Yep.
And I'm sorry that for those that see it, playoffs are bust just because the offense is good. Just because the defense is going to be better, shows how bad this team was last year, especially without Kyler Murray. It's fun that everybody showed up and played hard every week. That was, gone with Cliff Kingsbury here, regardless of their record. But this is still a rebuild. They're not Super Bowl ready yet. Talk 2025, we could actually be having those conversations predicated upon what happens this year. Tyler Drake, Arizona Sports. Thank you, Cardinals Corner. I guess we're alliteration buddies.
I know, right? All right.
At T Drake for Sports on Twitter. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.